Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down, special edition of The Sit Down. We got Selenis and Marizol with us. Levya sisters, they got their brand new book, My Sister. Guys, how you doing with this whole quarantine thing right now?
It could be better, but at least we have accessibility to the virtual world, so we can keep in touch with our loved ones. We could promote our book by doing interviews, so it could be worse.
I totally agree.
So I'm really happy to be talking with you guys and really excited to get into your lives in this book. So Selenis, why don't we start with you? How did this whole thing come together? And I'm sure it was really cathartic for you guys to put it all down on paper. So what were some of the big things you took away from it?
I think that, for me, it was important to just use my platform. I believe that if you have a platform, you have a responsibility to do more than just promote your work and yourself and your red carpet moments. So for me, being an ally of the LGBTQ plus community, since I can remember, I felt that it was really important to honor my sister and give her an opportunity to share her experience as a trans woman. We usually, for the last couple of years, perhaps we've had more conversations about the trans community, but I think that the representation of the Latinx voice, the middle to lower class voice, the not famous voice needed to have its time to be heard, and I felt it was really important and vital for us all to hear our different stories, to hopefully have empathy and respect one another. So for me, it was just using my platform during a time that I feel people are ready to hear the stories that need to be told.
Marizol, why don't you jump in here? What's it been like for you, not only telling your story, but like your sister said, just seeing the transition the last couple of years and really increasing this conversation around LGBTQ people?
Yes, for me, it's been an amazing experience for the simple fact that I've been completely blessed to have my sister give me a platform to build for myself and my community and start conversations that often aren't had. And so the experience with me going through that and starting the conversations and sharing our story has been really an amazing feeling and super humbling, because there's other people out there like myself and often feel like their voice aren't being heard or they're silenced to the experiences they're going through. So when I was presented with this opportunity to write a book with my sister, I was just like, this is beyond me. This is more about like my community and like really getting out there and discussing about the conversations that aren't had, sharing my story so people can be able to resonate and be authentic and live in their truth.
Yeah, I give you guys a ton of credit for talking about this publicly, and I'm sure the family conversations were really difficult at times and really fascinating at times. So I think identity plays a huge part in this. So Marizol, why don't we start with you here? Just take us back to just what those initial conversations were like for you during your transition and when you were trying to figure things out.
The conversations weren't really had directly with my family members. It was more about like me breaking it down to my sister and my sister passing down the information down to my other family members and kind of like just learning throughout the way of my transition. Because again, I wasn't really aware in the beginning or before of not even knowing that the trans people existed and they were out there. And so when I came in terms and connected with people like myself and asking questions and then utilizing the internet to do some research, I realized that, there was a whole nother world out there and that we did exist. And so throughout my experiences, that's how I kind of helped my sister to kind of like guide some of my family members into what I was going through and where I was going with transition.
And Selenis, for you, when you think about that responsibility, not only in dealing with your sister, but in dealing with other people in your family, what was that experience like for you?
I think that, I've always had that responsibility. I talk about it in the book, as the oldest daughter, as the oldest in my family, also as the child of immigrants. You from an early age, you were expected to kind of like almost perform as an older person. So I've always had the responsibility to somehow guide my family members. So this kind of just was natural. And it was, thank God that I had the the relationship that I do with my parents and my other siblings, that I was able to kind of like have them hear me, you know, have them hear me out. And it wasn't easy, and it's not, even to this day, it's not saying that everyone is 100% on board, you know, but there is a level of respect, and there is a level of wanting to understand more. It's exhausting at times, I'm not going to lie to you. I think that having your own life, having your own career, having your own child, and your own everything, and also then on top of that, having the responsibility to continuously to educate people, can be exhausting, but I think it's also needed. So what I do is, you know, whenever I need to take the breather, I step back, I take a breather, but always come forward, because it's important to me to have everybody that I love be on the same page.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have boundaries with people and just with yourself. I think it's really important to just educate people. You may not change everybody's minds, but I think conversations like this go a long way. I think TV and film certainly helps with that. I really think about Orange is the New Black and how transformative that show was. And like, you're going through this in your personal life, you're seeing this on TV. Like, that must have been wild for you, Selenis.
It was kind of crazy, because at the same time, you know, when we started with Orange is the New Black on Netflix, nobody knew what streaming was going to be like. We were the guinea pigs.
Yeah, streaming wasn't a thing at that point.
It wasn't a thing, you know, so here we were kind of like entering this new world where I was like, is this a web series? I didn't know what to expect. And then on top of that, it was like a cast of women, diverse women. We weren't walking around in heels and like high, you know, high-waisted like skirts. We were like heavy duty in it, and dealing with a lot of issues that I felt I wasn't sure if who was going to be into it, who was going to be open to it. And then I met Laverne Cox on the show, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, here's a trans woman who was going to be representing and being the voice to a lot of people. Like, I immediately knew that her role on the show and her role outside of the show was going to be monumental.
Marizol, what was it like for you to watch that show, whether it was Laverne or any of the other characters in that show? What was it like for you?
It was super liberating to see someone that is a trans person identify as a trans woman, for the simple fact that, you know, there wasn't a space in Hollywood or TV film where trans people were being portrayed in a positive way and telling a story in a very authentic, truthful way. And so when I seen Laverne Cox on the screen, it was just like, wow, like, we're finally like possibly going into the right direction. And the more I continue to watch, and the more I continue to watch Laverne Cox and use her platform and have these amazing different discussions that were opening the door for so many others, was really nice to see, and just gave hope to the trans community that we were going in the right direction. Yeah,
no question about it. Marizol, was there a moment for you where it all finally clicked, where you're like, yeah, this is me, I'm living authentically, I've really found myself? Can you take us back to that moment?
Yeah, there was a moment, and that moment for me, although I found my truth and my authenticity, I realized it more, my visibility, when my sister invited me to a women's event where she was presenting an award for Laverne Cox. And when I was into that space, there was other trans women out there that were doing amazing things, where they were singing, modeling, acting, that were there supporting her as well. I got to meet them, and it was just really nice to see that they were in a space that they were being inclusive, and it made me feel like I too can become that as well, and that my identity can be visible as well.
Selenis, what do you remember about that night?
Gosh, I remember it being a really emotional night. It was the first time that I guess I said out loud to a room full of people that I didn't know, that I had a transgender sister. And I remember the feeling of the room. Everybody was almost like in shock. And even some of my producers from Orange is the New Black that were there were like, oh, we had no idea. Obviously Laverne knew, because I had a conversation with her prior to that. And just being able to introduce Laverne that evening, to give her the homage and honor her that evening, and have my sister at the same table, sitting with Laverne and sitting with other wonderful people from the community, was a truly celebration for the first time out loud, just a true celebration of what it is to just live your truth. It was something that I'll never forget. I remember every point of that night, and it was really magical, and it was a moment that I feel kind of solidified where we are today. You know, it was just like a true celebration of who Marisol is as a trans woman.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful way to put it. And when you think about Orange is the New Black, it was really one of one. I mean, it's unlike any show that's ever been out there. So, Selenis, what do you miss the most about that experience and all the different women and people that you worked with?
You know what I miss the most of Orange is the New Black? I think it's the scripts and how strong they were. You know, the writing on that show was unlike anything I've ever seen thus far. It will always have a moment in history, and to be part of that, you know, whether it was because we started the streaming, you know, phenomenon, or whether it was because for the first time we were truly showing Hollywood and the world what diversity is, what true diversity is. Just to be part of that was really great. I miss those smart storytelling moments. I miss those entertaining moments that also educate. And I'm hoping that the producers out there and writers will continue to play it, you know, a little bit on the wild side, and not be so safe with the storytelling that exists, because we proved that you know, something like Orange is the New Black, which was so kind of like different, works. People want to hear that. People want to hear different. People want to see themselves represented on the screen. And that's what we proved with that show. And it will forever be a part of it. And I miss all my sisters and my brothers on the show. The cast and crew will forever live in my heart, in my soul.
Yeah, there's definitely an interest and a hunger for it, no question about it. And there's definitely an interest in this conversation too. So, Marizol, when people read this book, what do you want people to know about your story and just about what it means to be transgender to you?
I want people to know that whether it be the families that are reading the story or someone who identifies in the LGBT community, to know that, one, for families, it's okay to accept your child for who they are and love them for who they are, because I find that it was helpful for me to have that support from my family in supporting me in my transition. And I realized how effective it could have been if I didn't have my family, because at one point I felt like I had to venture off on my own and just learn on my own. And so I've come across trans people that don't have family members and what that was like for them. And I spent many holidays without my family. So I knew what that felt like. And so I knew that having family support and acceptance will help you thrive and be authentic and be successful in life, because I think something about love really helps you be the authentic you that you can be. And for the trans people and anyone in the LGBT community, I say, take this story, our story, and never silence yourself. Express yourself for who you are. Tell a loved one how you're feeling about things that you're feeling, whether it's your gender identity, your sexuality, whatever it may be. It's okay to have these conversations with somebody you really care about, because we're in a place now that these are the conversations that are being had, and we continue to have the conversations. We have amazing activists and just people showing up and being allies in the community that will be there to back you up and, you know, in your life. And so I hope that they take this as a stepping stone and realize that, you know, we did it, they can do it as well.
Perfectly said. Selenis, I'll give you the final word. When people check out the book, what are the big things you want them to walk away thinking?
I want them to read this book and know that it's our story, but it's everybody's story. It's a story about survival. It's a story about how love and family and support really can triumph anything. It's not easy. It wasn't perfect. We are very honest with it. We're raw with our accounts, and we made mistakes along the way. I certainly made mistakes. Marisol did. We all did. But at the end, what was most important for us is that we were there for each other, how we kind of came back and found that. I want this book to be a source of inspiration. It is not an oh, woe is me. We share our early years and the hardship, but I want people to understand that this book is a book of survival. This book is a book about triumph, and it's a family. And I want families and communities to gather together and just find some moment of being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone walking in the LGBTQ plus community, of someone who is trans. And though you may not understand, you may not maybe even agree, we have to respect. We have to give ourselves the opportunity to open up our hearts, to just listen to someone else's story. And I'm sure if you truly listen, you'll find empathy.
Yeah, just step outside of yourself, empathize, be compassionate.
Be compassionate. I mean, if we don't learn something out of this whole experience that we're going through worldwide right now, I don't know what's left for us as a human race. And this book is just another plea for people to just open your hearts and realize that just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. So I invite you all to not only stay safe, stay indoors, but read our book and find empathy. We all have it within.
All right. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much. Stay safe, and we'll talk.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thanks, guys. Bye.